going to ask you somewhat of an easy question, if you can sum it up. Why are you running for mayor of Indianapolis again?
Yeah, I think the fact that the pandemic delayed, it fortunately did not deny anything for Indianapolis, but it did delay projects that I'd like to see finished. That in no small measure was the reason why I chose to try to finish or serve a third term so I could finish the job.
Finish the job. So you had 2 terms running for your 3rd term here. You obviously love Indianapolis. I mean, this is your community, this is your home, this is where your family is. What do you love about Indianapolis so much?
Well, I think that Indianapolis it really is unique in the sense that it's in the heart of the country. It's the crossroads of America. We have a wonderful economy of tourism and conventions and the like. So the downtown is vibrant, and it's just a wonderful place to raise a family. It's a place to enjoy the time that you have to make the city better. And that's why I want to run for a 3rd term, and I'd like to serve for another term.
And some people are going to say, hey, you had 2 terms to get the job done, to get those projects done, and pass the torch to someone else to bring someone new into the seat. What makes you a good candidate? What do you say to those voters who say, he already had his time, let's give it a shot to someone else? What do you say to them?
Well, in all fairness to myself, the global pandemic were perhaps the toughest 3 or 4 years, not just for Indianapolis, but for the world. I hope we never go through a global pandemic like we have just gone through. And as a result, you can't help but feel like you really weren't given the opportunity to, this last term, we were focused on public health and public safety. And there are other things that I'd like to see accomplished. And so I ultimately decided if I had one more opportunity to serve one last term, and this clearly will be my final term, if elected, just to finish the job. And
what are those projects? What are those things that go through your head where you're like, okay, I still want to get this done. I don't feel like I've made as much progress as I wanted to. What are those things?
Oh, how much time do we have?
I know, right? Sum it up.
It's probably best manifest by the Pan Am Plaza redevelopment, the expansion of the convention center, the building of the Hilton Signia Hotel, which I think will transform that area of our city. But you look at Bottle Works, you look at IU Health, you look at 16 Tech, you look at Elanco coming out of the ground at the GM stamping plant, you look at the possibility of Indy 11, you look at the Cambridge Fieldhouse complete renovation, you look at Jail 1, Jail 2, the Arrestee Processing Center. You look across the interstate to Elevator Hill. There is so much development going on in Indianapolis. In fact, one of your news gathering partners indicated or projected that we would have over $9 billion in development over the next 4 or 5 years. So it's an exciting time, and I'd like to be able to continue to lead.
Yeah. And I know one of the biggest issues facing our city is, and it's at the cornerstone of your campaign, of your opponent's campaign, is of course the gun violence happening in our city. It's been going on for a while. What do you think gun violence is doing to our community here in Marion County, to these families, to these neighborhoods?
Well, it sadly is impacting the lives of too many people. And frankly, I find one homicide to be immoral. The level of homicides that the city has experienced, particularly beginning with the pandemic and up through including today, we've been trying to reduce the number of homicides, and frankly, after a $150 million 3-year anti-violence investment, we're starting to see dividends in Last year, at the end of 2022, we saw a 16% decrease in the number of homicides. And even though it's only the end of September in 2023, we are well on our way to another double-digit reduction in the number of homicides. Now, the job's not done. We still have much more to do, but the numbers are certainly trending in the right direction. And violence itself is down. The number of non-fatal shootings, they are down. And so progress is being made and the numbers are going the right way.
How do you convince voters of that? You know, when they're in these neighborhoods and they're hearing the sirens, or they're, hearing about family members their loved ones who are hurt. How do you convince voters that we are making that turnaround as a city?
Well, I think when they understand and appreciate that an unprecedented amount of money from the American Rescue Plan has been devoted to public safety, to increasing our public safety personnel, to giving our neighborhoods $15 million each year over a 3-year period of time. The investments and the commitment that we're making, I think, does go a long way toward convincing people that we are making progress. And as I said, statistically, it's unassailable. Homicides are down 16% in 2022. Homicides are on a double-digit reduction this year, and I hope that that continues into the next year as well.
Right, yeah, when you look at the last couple of years, but then sometimes if you look back to 2016 or before the pandemic, it's hard to then compare those numbers because that's where we would like to be, right? We want to get even lower than where we're at now. Sorry, did you want to go?
No.
I know a big challenge of that is our force, IMPD. You've talked about it before, recruiting and retaining those officers. How do we do that? I know we've thrown money at it, we've increased wages, bonuses. How do we convince people to stay on the force and also come here to Marion County? It seems like that's been a big challenge.
Well, I will tell you that during my two-year terms, we have added nearly 800 new officers, which is 50% of the current IMPD force has been hired in my tenure as mayor. Now, we still have unfilled positions that are fully funded that we are actively recruiting to fill. And yeah, pay has been important. When I first became mayor, a first-year officer was making $39,000 a year. Now, first-year officers are making $72,000 a year. That's an 85% increase. And so we are attempting to make the process of being a police officer, which is a dangerous proposition to begin with, as beneficial and as lucrative as we can make it, providing better technology, buying body cams for officers' protection, and making investments that will hopefully, new vehicles for the officers, and those types of things make a difference in making a job more attractive than perhaps some of our peer cities.
Right. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing police officers today who are on the street?
Well, I don't think there's any question that the aftermath of George Floyd has had an impact on the way people view the police. And this is not IMPD, it was officers up in Minneapolis, but the way that incident occurred and the aftermath of its trial, I think has been difficult for police departments everywhere to recruit new officers. And but Indianapolis is still a destination city. People know that it's a great place to live and raise a family and work. So I'm hoping that a combination of all those things can be used to increase the size of IMPD. We have, before the City County Council, the largest budget in the history of IMPD. And so we are making the type of investments that I think will go a long way toward making that occupation more attractive.
Right. So we've talked about ways to fight gun violence in our city, but what do you think is driving the violence here?
Well, I think the proliferation of guns. Everyone has a gun, and that's why I have been outspoken in my argument for safer, stricter measures that are widely supported, universally accepted, like raising the age that someone can purchase a gun from 18 to 21, like eliminating permitless carry, eliminating concealed carry, banning the sale of military-style assault weapons. All of those things would go a long way toward making our community safer. I'm proud to have found the money to hire 3 additional Special Assistant United States Attorneys who are charged with the responsibility of doing nothing but prosecuting gun violence here in Marion County. So those steps, I think, will go a long way toward helping us in that regard.
And some of that will take the General Assembly, will take the State House, getting to work together, with them. How realistic do you think this will be to get some of that stuff passed?
Well, I think that, I think it's always a bit of a challenge to go over to the State House, but Indianapolis is a very different community than any other part of the state. And I'm not the mayor of Indiana. I'm the mayor of Indianapolis. So all I'm simply asking is for the General Assembly to allow Indianapolis people to be at the table when these decisions are made. Indianapolis lawmakers, Indianapolis community leaders, Indianapolis neighborhood associations who are bearing the brunt of the gun violence. And they have a right to be at the table when these types of decisions are made. And I'm hoping that they will allow us to do so.
So we've talked a lot about how the city can fight this, how police, how the mayor can. What can the people do at home right now about this problem? When it's impacting their community, their families, what can they do besides voting for you, but what can they do about this problem, this issue right now?
Well, this morning's press conference is a good example. We were out at Shelton Heights Community Park, and Keep Indianapolis Beautiful and AES were out there this morning. They had just come back with a study done by the University of Michigan's public school, and the study found that neighbors and neighborhoods who promote green spaces and parks in and around their neighborhood, it actually decreases the level of violence that those people experience. And those are neighborhoods coming together to do positive things within their boundaries of their neighborhood to decrease the incidence of gun violence and violence generally. And so your question is very timely because we made that announcement this morning. And I can tell you there are a lot of people on the west side of town that are glad to hear the news that their investment in green space and park space is paying dividends in the level of violence that they experience.
Right, just getting involved in your community,
Absolutely.
Being there for each other,
Right.
Especially our youth. We've seen an increase in shootings on that front with our young kids here in the city. What can we do about that? I mean, does that go back to the gun problem that we're seeing throughout Marion County?
Well, there's no question that if young people have access to guns, they oftentimes resolve conflicts with those guns. So we need to get the guns out of the hands of the young people. And that's why some of my common sense gun safety measures, I think, are so profoundly important. And I hope the legislature understands that, because I'm not trying to take the guns out of the hands of law-abiding, responsible gun owners. I want to get the guns out of the hands of people who have absolutely no business possessing them. And a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old person in the city of Indianapolis, they have no right to have the gun, and we need to get the guns out of their hands.
And shifting a little away from gun violence, another issue we're seeing here in Marion County, housing. When it comes to affordability, the supply of it, How do you think that is impacting our community, our city, our families when it comes to finding a house, finding an apartment to live in?
Well, we want to make sure that everybody and anybody who wants to buy a home or rent an apartment has the availability to do it. And the truth is that our housing stock is not keeping up with the demand. That is why this administration has focused historically high levels of resources into a wide variety of different units of housing, different price points. We need condos, we need first-time home buyers, we need apartment dwellers. Now, residentially in downtown, the market is exploding, but not everybody can afford to live downtown. And so we want to make sure that affordable housing is provided, workforce housing, below market rate housing, that all types of housing of any sort are available to the residents of the city of Indianapolis. And that will be a top priority in a next administration.
And how can we do that? I know you can't always control, you can't control the interest rates, but how can we do that? How can we start opening the door for more people here downtown?
Well, you have to make studied investments in the market, and you do that a number of different ways. You work with developers and ask them to participate when they want to build their own development. We have developer-backed bonds and set-asides that require those developers that if they want incentives, either TIF or tax abatements, that they set aside a certain number of units in their development to be either market rate or below market rate or affordable. And so there's a lot of different ways that the Department of Metropolitan Development can work with housing units that are being built and make them more readily affordable for every resident of the city of Indianapolis.
And we talked about this a little bit already, but just to ask you again, what do you think is driving the problem of housing affordability throughout the city?
Well, it's not as readily available as it needs to be, and there are not enough units to make every resident have the opportunity to have the kind of housing that they need. And that's exactly why we're committed to doing precisely that.
Is there anything that we're not doing now as a city that you want to do in the future?
Besides commit to building more housing, that's the answer. It's just pure and simple.
Yeah, that pretty much sums that up. Is there anything people can do at home for this issue? Just like gun violence, we talked about getting involved in your community. Is there anything people can do at home to help with this issue?
Well, every individual has a responsibility to save and to provide for their family. And frankly, if there are units of affordable housing available to them that for which they can afford, they need to take advantage of it. The city's responsibility is to make sure that the units are being built and are available. And our record in terms of breaking ground on new affordable housing units is one that I would put up against any previous administration in our city's history.
And then again, shifting gears here, going to infrastructure, our roads. I think no matter where you drive, we all know that this is an issue come winter with potholes, and also when it comes to funding. What are you seeing throughout your terms you've seen here in Indy that we need to change, that we need to do differently?
Well, I think, again, we're working with the General Assembly on a new funding formula that's more equitable for more densely populated communities. The plain fact is that rural communities in Indiana per capita get a decidedly greater road funding according to the current formula. But I think that there is a general acknowledgement, not just by Indianapolis, but by surrounding counties and by other urban metropolitan areas in the state, that the more densely populated your community is, the more penalized you get under the current road funding formula. So going to the legislature and convincing people to come together and make it more equitable is step number one. The second thing that I think you need to do is do what we're doing at the City County Council in this year's 2024 operating budget negotiations, and that is make a $1.2 billion investment over the next 4 or 5 years into greater road funding. I'm glad that not only will that money be used to update and upgrade our major thoroughfares, but over the course of the last several years, nearly $100 million, if not more than $100 million, has gone into residential rehabilitation and neighborhood roads. And in this year's budget, if it's passed as I proposed, $2 to $3 million will go into funding our repair of our alleyways. Now, I can't remember a time that the city of Indianapolis set aside or dedicated any part of their infrastructure budget for alleyways. And while admittedly $2 to $3 million doesn't allow every alley in Indianapolis to be rehabbed, it goes a long way toward upgrading those alleys that have over time deteriorated considerably. And I think the people of Indianapolis appreciate that commitment.
Absolutely. And how do we make sure that funding, let's say for the alleyways or the sidewalks, how do we make sure that funding is equitable and is going to different communities throughout the city instead of maybe just the north side or the south side? How do we make sure that funding is spread across all areas?
Well, I think the administration does a very, very good job of working with the leadership, both the Republican and the Democratic leadership on the City County Council. And I think even they would tell you that the road funding distribution has been quite equitable among City County Council districts. I'm proud to report that we will be, if passed, we will pass our 7th consecutive fully funded, fully balanced budget. And of those 7 budgets, 2 of those, they've all passed with broad bipartisan support, and 2 of those 7 budgets have passed unanimously. Every Republican, every Democrat on the council has voted for the budget. Now, if somebody was concerned that their district wasn't being equitably treated, I don't think they'd vote for the budget.
That's true. And getting back to the road funding formula at the State
House, how have those talks been going? I know this has been ongoing for a long time, an ongoing fight. Any progress?
Yeah, I think it's going very well. I don't harbor any illusion that we're going to be able to wave a magic wand and get that funding formula changed in the next session of the General Assembly. But I will say that in this last session of the General Assembly, the state agreed through the legislature to change the way Indianapolis's population is adjudged for purposes of distribution of road funding. And so that the entirety of Marion County is considered, all of its population, which provided $8 to $10 million additional dollars in road funding coming from the legislature. $8 to $10 million doesn't solve the problem, but then again, it's $8 to $10 million that we aren't currently receiving that we now will start receiving because of their willingness to change the formula.
Do we know how much money it would take to fix all of the city's roads, bridges, sidewalks? Are we talking pretty big dollar sign?
I recall a study being done and a conversation that I had with Mayor Ballard when he left office and I came to office. Both the roadways study and Mayor Ballard's personal knowledge of the way the roads were in his last year, it probably would require a $1 billion commitment annually because of the size and the scope of Marion County and because of the number of roads that the city is responsible for taking care of. It would probably be an annual commitment of $1 billion. The budget in its entirety, as I proposed it in August of this year, is about 1.4 to 1.5 billion, and that's for everything. So we've got a lot of ground to make up, but I'm comfortable that we're dedicated to doing whatever's necessary to make our roads as pristine as we can make them.
I'm sure everyone would love that, and their cars.
Yes.
Kind of zooming out a little bit and looking at the future of Indianapolis. Oh, do you need? Oh, 5 more minutes? Okay. Zooming out a little bit and looking at the future of Indianapolis, what do you think the biggest challenge is for us in the next 10 years? After, your term and all that, what do you think would be the biggest challenge for us here in Marion County?
Well, I think that there's a number of different challenges that we've talked about that will continue to be very, very important prioritizations. Roads, the public safety and the public welfare of our people, our education system, where I'm ecstatic about what, let me make sure I get this right, Purdue University at Indianapolis and Indiana University -Indianapolis. I am really excited about the transformative effect that 2 R1 top-level research universities are going to bring to Indianapolis. And with the separation of the two, both coexisting, I think as leading institutions. And if you want to talk about talent attraction, talent recruitment, talent retention, which we all know is really the basis of economic development in the 21st century, I think those two institutions will go a long way toward helping us address some of the challenges that we face. We're always worried about making sure that educational opportunity is provided to every resident of our state, young and old. And so that will continue to be a long-term commitment for the city long after I'm no longer mayor. So all of those things in combination with one another, I think, will be not only a challenge for a 3rd term if I'm given one, but will probably remain in some way, shape, or form beyond my years and well into the future. And in terms of a single project, I would really like to see by the end of a 3rd term, if one is given to me, a complete transformation of the Circle Center Mall downtown. It's 30 years old now. It was cutting edge at the time it was built. The urban malls do not survive as they were envisioned 30 or 40 years ago. So how that is transformed into new space, whether that be retail, residential, mixed use, that I think will be a very important project for the next mayor and the next term.
Right, so a lot of big opportunities, but also at the same time trying to face some of those challenges, right? As far as our downtown, let's sum it up there. This is the heart of our city, the Circle. We've seen a little bit of a bounce back since the pandemic, but what else can we do? What else can we do to bring our downtown back to life? I know we've tried in the last couple of years, but there's more to do, right?
Oh yes, there's always more to do, and I want to leave office in 4 years if I'm elected with a better downtown than we had before the pandemic. There's no question the pandemic was a deciding factor in impacting all of our lives, and particularly the way people work downtown. We are working with employers to get people back to as normal a schedule of downtown workers. But what I'm pleased to be able to report to you, residential occupancy is 95% of the units available in downtown. In other words, people are moving to downtown. And I think that will go a long way toward helping the resiliency of our downtown, because instead of relying on a worker who's maybe driving in from the townships or is driving in from contiguous counties to work from 8:30 to 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, how much better would it be for downtown to have more people living downtown 24/7? I think that businesses downtown would really see that as a way of driving our resiliency and making our community even better than it was before the setback that occurred in 2020.
Perfect. Okay, one more, and then you can go.
Yeah.
I asked you this in the beginning about why you wanted to run for mayor. Why do it? You've had 2 terms. It's a lot of work. Why do you want to run for mayor of Indianapolis again? Why give it a 3rd shot again? I know you've answered this already, but sum it up for me again. What makes you the best candidate for this position?
I love Indianapolis. Indianapolis has been my home for my entire adult life. It's a place that I care about as a location, but I care more about its people and their future. And why me and not my opponent? I think that the last 8 years have given me a view of Indianapolis, perhaps in some of its finer moments, and I've also seen some of the more challenging moments. I can't say it enough. The last 3 to 4 years have perhaps been the most challenging time that we have ever faced in our city's history. And that's why I'm particularly proud that I was the mayor during the toughest time, because that's when you need real leadership, and that's where experience comes in. And I hope I have the experience that it takes to continue to lead our city.